So it's the fall. The fall is upon us, and in our house we have a little one who headed off to preschool this year. And so I was thinking this week about growing up. There are all kinds of lessons in life that teachers teach us, right? There are those lessons that teachers pass on. Lessons that have more to do, they're about more than math or about science or about geography. They're lessons about life. From teachers, we learn lessons like this. And some of these lessons are pretty basic. Like, we learn in school to follow directions. Some of you, I'm sure, are still learning that. I was with a friend the other day, and he ordered a shed from Menards, and I said, well, where are the directions? He said, oh, we'll read those last. So other lessons we learn from our teachers: honesty is the best policy. Good. Always treat people with respect. Good. And when times get tough, you've got to roll with the great. Every action has a reaction. Good. And one of my all-time favorites, our all-time favorites, is there is no such thing as a stupid question. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Now, I know most of us, somewhere along the line, were convinced by someone that there is no such thing as a stupid question, and often I do agree with that, but I've got to be honest, today, I don't believe that. Of course, you have to hang out with some of the people I hang out with. But there are stupid questions. For example, in our reading today, James and John showed quite clearly that there are indeed stupid questions. There are. They ask a really, really bad question. You see, Jesus has just told them who he is. Prior to our reading today, Jesus has just told these men that he is God's Son. He's the Messiah, and being the Messiah will mean for him suffering. It'll mean death. It'll mean the resurrection. He's told them that this is what it means to be Jesus, the Messiah, to be God. That he, as God, the Son of God, will go all the way to the cross for his people. He will suffer. He will suffer at the hands of his people. This is what it means to be Jesus. This is what it means to be faithful. Jesus has just told James and John that what it means to be the Son of God is that he will suffer. He'll endure death. And immediately after, James and John, they ask a really stupid question. They ask if they can sit on his right and left side in his glory. They ask if they can have positions of power in his administration, if you will. If they can have their place in Jesus' royal court. If they can attend those black-tie dinners with Jesus. If they can sleep on fine linens and enjoy the great glory of sitting on either side of Jesus. They ask a really stupid question. You see, they just don't get it. They just don't get it. They've just heard him say that for him to be the Messiah means that life, it's not going to be pretty. He's not going to be the kind of king that everyone expects. He'll have no guards, no thrones, no life in a palace. His kingdom is a whole lot messier than that. He'll be spending all his time suffering with those in need. He'll be on the streets with those who are sick, who are lost, who are ostracized. And James and John, they don't hear any of that. Or maybe they can't comprehend it. But regardless, they ask a really bad question. Because they just don't get Jesus. And to be honest, when you read the book of Mark, Jesus, on 3 different occasions, 3 different times in the book of Mark, he predicts this coming of suffering and death. On 3 different occasions, he simply lays it all out there for the disciples, what it means to be Jesus, what it means to be the Messiah, the Son of God. And I think what's really telling is that after each one of these revelations of Jesus, each time, what follows is that we get a story of one of those disciples putting their foot in their mouth, saying something ridiculous or just plain crazy. They say things that show they just can't seem to comprehend who Jesus is. They don't get it. For example, earlier in the book of Mark, the first time Jesus tries to tell the disciples that he's the Messiah, the first thing that comes out of the disciples' mouth comes from Peter. Peter looks at Jesus and says, "Don't you ever say anything like that, Jesus." And Peter, it says, rebukes Jesus. He scolds Jesus because Jesus has openly told those disciples and all gathered that he's going to live a life of suffering and die. Peter didn't get it. And then later, Jesus again tries to tell the disciples again that he's the Son of Man and he will experience this suffering and death. And this time, the first thing those disciples do is to begin to argue. They begin to argue about who is the greatest among them. They start bickering about who's the best. And I imagine Jesus just shook his head. Don't you get it, guys? And now, after this third try on Jesus' part, the first thing that happens after him trying to tell the disciples, they want to know if they can have seats in his royal court. They want positions of power. They want to be his Secretary of State or Speaker of the House or a seat in his cabinet. You see, they just don't get it. They don't get that with Jesus there are no seats of glory. There are no seats of power. This isn't about some administration marching in and taking over, ruling from above. There's no glory here. In fact, with Jesus, it's the exact opposite. Being Jesus is about giving up. It's about serving. It's about caring for those on the margins. It's about weakness and tending to those no one else would tend to. You see, the author of Mark paints this picture of these disciples as really not understanding exactly who they are following. They don't see what it means for him to be Christ, the Messiah. Peter calls Jesus the Messiah of God, but he doesn't get who Jesus is. James and John get that Jesus is the real deal, but all they want is positions of power. What's absolutely clear in our reading is that the disciples think they know who Jesus is and why he has come, but they really don't get it. And I suppose that's good news for us, really. Actually, I think it's really good news for us. Because I don't know about you, but when it comes to this faith stuff, I don't know that I always get it. That's shocking for a pastor maybe to admit, and I don't think any of us do all the time. Yeah, we often talk a good game, but when it comes down to it, I don't think there is one of us that has this God of ours totally figured out. Yeah, we try to make things black and white. We try to say that this is what God wants and that isn't. We want to believe we know the heart of God, but let's be honest, there isn't one of us that has a handle on God. We all wonder, I think, some days. I think most of us wonder what this faith stuff has to do with our lives Monday through Friday. Most of us maybe wonder sometimes, what does this Jesus really mean for my life, for my marriage, for my kids, my politics, my view on all kinds of social issues? I think most of us know what it's like to find ourselves like those disciples, not quite getting it all the time. Maybe wishing we're a little better first. And even more, I think if we're honest, now and then we even miss the boat, just like those disciples. Like Peter rebuking Jesus, we're not all that keen on some of the things Jesus says. Like when he says, if any want to be my followers, let them deny themselves and follow me. Or as Americans, we don't always like that saying, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for the wealthy to enter the kingdom those disciples arguing about who's the greatest, who's the most pious among us, which denomination or church or group of Christians are the best, who have things right. Or maybe, though we don't want to admit it, we're a bit like James and John. We want those good seats. We know we're supposed to do this faith thing. It makes us look better to grandma or to mom. But inside, we're not so sure what it's all about. Friends, I don't think we're all that unlike the disciples. There are times where we don't have all the answers, where we just don't get it. We don't. But here's the deal. Jesus, if I recall in the story, Jesus didn't abandon those disciples. He doesn't abandon those confused disciples, those guys who never quite get it. He didn't at all. In fact, he loved them all the more. He did. He loved them all the more. These were his right-hand men, those closer to him than anyone else. It is this group of disciples that Jesus would use to make sure the story got told. Yeah, they don't get it all the time. Yeah, they weren't perfect. Yeah, they even asked really stupid questions now and then. But they were his. They were his beloved. And so are you. So are you. Friends, God isn't looking for us to be perfect. He's not looking for us to have all the answers, though we may not be so clear when it comes to this faith stuff. Jesus is absolutely clear about one thing. You see, he just wanted those disciples to know, and he wants you to know. Each one of you, if you are loved, you are. Just as you are. As confused and opinionated and doubt-filled as we might be, we have a God who didn't abandon those disciples and will never, never abandon us. Thanks be to God. Amen.